wanted to all offer a special Memorial Day weekend, hello, hurrah, all that to you. Of course, this day we are remembering those who have fallen in combat, which has a lot to do with the theme that is so prevalent in this entire series. Now, you may notice something a little different about me today. If you're listening this time and want to pop over here for just a second, you'll see that I have a special little what looks like a flower. It's a poppy. Now, this is a symbol that used to be way more popular and a few people wear still. And if you go and you see old videos of Sir Christopher Lee in some interviews, he'll be wearing it on certain days. And it's a symbol that came about mostly popularized for after the First World War. And so I encourage you to perhaps look some things up about that. Now I see that my mug of tea is in the foreground here. Sorry about that. And I'm going to be using this mug for this reading, which is from the Isle of Man, which you can see has a Manx cat on it. And then on the other side, that's very good, has the 3 legs of man, the Triskelion, on it, which you may recognize in our opening intro when I'm sitting playing a game of Fidchel with Achilles during the countdown, is all over my robe. Because, in fact, I am Manx. So, there we go. Okay, so, hope you're all sitting comfortably. We had a little bit of a technical issue at the beginning of last episode with some sound, but I hope everything's going well. I'm looking at the levels, and it seems to be going all right. So, let us begin. Let me see just if anyone's even joined us as of yet. Oh, yep, there's the chat. Hello, Joe. All right. Oh, sound is really low. Let me turn that up. Thank you for pointing that out. That should fix it. There we go. Okay. Anyhow. Alright, well, I've just done the sound up, so hopefully this is better for y'all. And if you couldn't hear before, what happened was I'm wearing the poppy, which is a symbol which you can look up its relation to World War I, and since then, not exclusively World War I, but I thought, well, I typically do my best to wear it on Memorial Day. So there it is. Oh, hey, how's it going, Ben? Alright, cool. So we are in, this is episode 10, and I'm going to be reading book 10. And if you are just joining us, well, you've picked a wonderful time to join, because this is a really good episode. Now, the Trojan War, as we know, has been going on for 10 years, and last we heard the Trojans had come out of the walls of Troy and pushed the Greeks back to their camp, where they had built a wall, and the fighting gave way tonight, and the Trojans are outside where the Greeks are, on the beach, and the Trojans are out there, and they've got all these fires set up, and they're staying awake and all that, and everyone's wondering what's going to happen next, because the Trojans, it looks like, are starting to win this thing. So anyhow, get that going. There we go. All right, cool. So let me see if we've got sound going through all right. All right, cool. Looks like no one's complaining anymore about the sound. Complaining, that sounds mean. Sorry, you guys are helping out. All right, cool. So, episode 10. Now, let me put my little character frame up here. There we go. I should update this. I think a few of these people are dead. But, whatever. And, of course, we know that earlier in the day, before Diomedes was killing lots and lots of Trojans, and Achilles is still not joining the fight. In fact, tomorrow he might be leaving to turn his back on the whole war and perhaps find himself a wife. Anyhow, let us begin. Iliad, Book 10. All the other leaders of the Greek alliance dozed through the night, subdued by soft sleep. But not Agamemnon. Sleep had no hold on the troubled mind of the army's commander. Think of lightning. Hera's rich hair streams in the sky when her husband builds storms. Heavy rain or unspeakable hail or snow that sifts down over cultivated land, or the barbed wire mouth of a battlefield. Thus, Agamemnon, the density of the groans from his heart's deep core, his visceral fear. Whenever he looked out over the Trojan plain, he marveled at how many fires burned before Ilion's walls, and at the din of flutes and pipes, and the dull roar of humanity. And whenever he looked at the Greek ships, he pulled clumps of his hair out from the roots in appeal to Zeus on high, and his heart ached. Nestor came to mind. He would go to Nestor, and the two would find some way to save the army. He sat up and pulled on his tunic, then laced on his sandals and threw a lion's skin over his shoulders, a fiery, reddish thing that reached down to his feet, and he took his spear. Menelaus was just as troubled and sleepless, but what would happen to all the Argives who had crossed the water for his sake and come to Troy with war in their hearts? He drew around his shoulders the dappled pelt of a leopard, put a bronze helm on his head, and gripping his spear, he went through the camp to waken his brother, the great warlord, whom the common folk honored as a god. He found Agamemnon by the stern of his ship, putting on his armor and glad to see his brother. Menelaus, good at the war cry, said to him, "Brother, why are you arming yourself? To rouse someone to scout out the Trojans? I am afraid you will find few volunteers for this mission. To go alone by night and spy on the enemy would take a brave man indeed." The warlord, Agamemnon, answered, "You and I need a plan, Menelaus, a good one, to save the army and the ships, now that Zeus has turned away from us. He seems to prefer Hector's sacrifices to ours. I have never seen or heard of any one man ever doing as much harm in a single day as Hector has done today to our boys, by himself alone. And he is not even the son of a goddess or god. Go now, run quickly through the ships and summon Ajax and Idomeneus, while I go to Nestor and see if he will go to the sentinels and alert them." They would listen to him, for his son is captain of the guard, he and Meriones, Idomeneus' comrade. It was to them especially we gave this command. And Menelaus, good at the war cry, "What are you telling me to do? To wait there with them until you come, or run back after I've delivered your orders?" And the warlord Agamemnon, "Wait there or we will miss each other as we cross the camp with all its paths. But give a shout wherever you go and wake the men up. Call each man by name and by his father's name, honoring them all. Let's you and I not be too proud to work. Zeus gave us this burden when we were born." And so Agamemnon sent his brother off, but went himself to visit Nestor, a shepherd to his people, and found him lying on a soft bed next to his hut and black ship. Beside him lay his rich gear, shield, 2 spears, and gleaming helmet, and the shimmering belt he always wore when he armed to lead his men into battle. Nestor just didn't give in to grievous old age. He rose on his elbow and lifted his head, and asked these questions of Atreus' son. "Who are you, going alone through camp, in the dead of night when everyone's asleep? Are you looking for one of your mules, or one of your friends? Speak out, and don't sneak up on me. What do you want?" And Agamemnon, the great warlord, "Nestor, son of Neleus, our great glory, you will know Agamemnon, Atreus' son, the man whom Zeus besets with more troubles than any man alive, as long as I draw my breath and my knees still bend. I am roaming like this because sleep won't come. So worried am I about the war and the Achaean troubles. I'm so afraid for the army, I'm losing my mind. I toss and turn, my heart pounds through my chest, and I can't stop trembling. If you want to help, since it seems you can't sleep either, come with me, and let's go to the sentinels, so we can make sure they haven't fallen asleep from fatigue and forgotten their watch. The enemy are bivouacked close by, and For all we know, they might attack by night. And Nestor, the old Geranian horseman, most glorious son of Atreus, Lord Agamemnon, Zeus in his wisdom will not fulfill all of Hector's hopes. No, his troubles will be worse than ours. If only Achilles would have a change of heart and give up his grudge. Of course I will go with you, but we should wake up some others, Tydeus' son, and Odysseus, and the swift Ajax, and Meges too, and someone should go and summon the godlike Ajax as well, and Idomeneus, for their ships are the furthest. As for Menelaus, dear and honor as he is, and even if it makes you angry, I will not shrink from having a word with him myself, for sleeping at a time like this and leaving you all the work. He should be hard at work beseeching all our best. This is a crisis we no longer can ignore. The warlord Agamemnon answered him, You may remind him of his responsibilities another time, old sir, and with my blessings. He is often unwilling to exert himself, not through sloth or lack of discernment, but in deference to my leadership. Just now, though, he awoke before I did and came to me, and I sent him out to summon the men you are asking for. But we should go. We will find them at the gates, among the guards, where I said they should gather. And Nestor, the old Geranian horseman, this is how he will earn the army's respect and their compliance when he issues commands. So saying, he pulled on his tunic, laced sandals onto his supple feet, and buckled around him a purple cloak, 2-ply, and broad, with a thick nap. He grasped a mighty spear, tipped with honed bronze, and went off through the ships. Odysseus, who could match wits with Zeus, was the first the old Geranian horseman woke up. His voice echoed in Odysseus' mind, and the Ithacan came out of the hut and said, Why are you going alone through camp in the dead of night? What's the emergency? And Nestor, the horseman of Gerania, son of Laertes, in the line of Zeus, Odysseus the strategist, don't be angry. We are under great duress. Come with us so we can rouse another whom we should consult, as we decide whether to fight or flee. And Odysseus, the master strategist, got a shield from his hut and went with them. They came to Diomedes, son of Tydeus, and found him outside his hut with his gear. His men were sleeping all around him, using their shields for pillows, their spears driven upright in the ground on their spikes. The bronze glittered like summer lightning. The hero was asleep on an ox hide, a bright rug under his head. Nestor woke him, rolling him over with his heel, and scolded, Up, son of Tydeus, are you going to sleep all night? Don't you know the Trojans are encamped on the rising ground close by the ships? Diomedes was awake and up in an instant, and his words flew fast as he said to Nestor, You're a tough old man, and you never quit. Couldn't one of the younger generation make the rounds waking up captains all through camp? You're impossible, though. And Nestor, the horseman of Gerania, That was well said, friend. I myself have perfectly good sons, and there are many others who would make the rounds and do the summoning. But we are very hard pressed. It all stands on a razor's edge now for the entire army. Ruin or survival. Now go rouse swift Ajax and Meges, if you really feel sorry for me. Thus spoke Nestor, and Diomedes threw over his shoulders a tawny lion's skin that reached to his feet. Grasping his spear, he went off to rouse and fetch the warriors. When they joined the sentinels, they found them wide awake, crouching down with their gear. Dogs will watch a sheepfold all night long with bloodshot eyes, but when they hear a predator approaching through the woods, and then the noise of men and hounds around it, their sleepiness completely disappears. So too these human eyes, as the sentinels kept watch through the night, turning toward the plain over and over again, whether they thought they heard Trojans coming. It warmed Nestor's heart, and the old man encouraged them with winged words. Just so, my boys. Keep your watch. Stay awake, or we will become sport for our enemies. And he hurried on through the trench, followed by all the captains summoned to his council, and by Meriones and Nestor's glorious son, whom they invited also. So they went through and up from the trench and sat themselves down in an open spot where the ground was clear of dead bodies, the very spot where Hector had turned back from slaughtering the Greeks when night enfolded him. Sitting down there, they held council, and Nestor began. "Well, my friends, is no one man enough to go among the Trojans and take captive some straggler, or otherwise overhear what the enemy intends? Will they stay put out here by the ships, or withdraw to the city now that they have beaten the Achaeans back? A man might learn all this and return unscathed, and his glory among men would reach the sky, and he would get gifts from every leader commanding ships here, from each a black ewe with lamb beneath. What could be finer? And he would forever be invited to feasts and to drinking parties." He finished, and they were hushed in silence. Then Diomedes rose to the occasion. "Nestor, my pride as a man urges me to go into the enemy camp over there. But if another were to go with me, it would help, and I would be more confident. When you work as a team, your partner helps see what will work out best. Solo, you might see, but not as much, and you're short on wits." There was no shortage of volunteers to accompany Diomedes. Both Ajaxes were ready, those servants of war. Ready was Meriones and Nestor's son. Ready Menelaus, the son of Atreus, and Odysseus, who could endure anything. Ready to infiltrate the Trojan lines. Then the warlord Agamemnon spoke out. "Diomedes, son of Tydeus, dear to my heart, choose as your comrade whoever you want, the best of all these, who put themselves forth. Do not, out of deference, choose a lesser man and leave a better behind, deferring to birth and seniority, even if one is more loyal." In truth, he was afraid for red-haired Menelaus. Diomedes, good at the battle cry, said, "If you really want me to make my own choice, how could I pass over godlike Odysseus, who has what it takes for any kind of work, the heart, the courage, and is Athena's friend. If he goes with me, we could make it back through blazing fire. He doesn't miss a thing." And Odysseus, who had endured many campaigns, "Diomedes, don't overrate my merits or my faults. You're talking to Greeks who know what's what. We'd better head out. It's very late, getting on toward dawn. The stars have shifted, and more than 2/3 of the night is gone." With that, they put on their formidable gear. Thrasymedes gave Diomedes a sword. He had left his own at his ship, and a shield. On his head he put a leather helmet, without horn or crest, the kind they call a skull cap, and that young warriors wear. Meriones gave to Odysseus a bow, a quiver, and a sword, while on his head he put a helmet made of hide, stiffened with numerous taut leather thongs inside, and faced outside with the gleaming white teeth of a tusker boar, set thick in alternate rows, cunningly and well. It was lined with felt. This helmet had been stolen by Autolycus from Amytor's palace in Ilion, and he gave it to Amphidamas of Cythera to take to Scandia, and Iphidamas gave it as a gift to Molus, who gave it to his son Meriones to wear. Now it protected Odysseus' head. When the two of them had all their gear on, they headed out. Hard on their right, Pallas Athena sent a heron flying. And although they couldn't see the bird in the dark, they heard its night cry. Glad at the omen, Odysseus said a prayer to Athena. "Hear me, child of Zeus, Aegis holder. You are ever by my side in all my troubles, and you look over me wherever I go. Be my friend once more, Athena, as never before. grant that we return to the ships in glory, having done great deeds to confound the Trojans. And Diomedes, good at the battle cry, hear me also, mystic daughter of Zeus. Go with me now, even as you went with my noble father, Tydeus, to Thebes, when he went as envoy of the Achaeans. Leaving them by the river Asopus, he bore to the Cadmeans peaceful words, but on his return did violent deeds, with you, divine one, standing beside him. Be thou willing to stand by me now, and I will sacrifice upon my return a sleek heifer, broad-browed and unbroken. That man has not yet put under the yoke, and I will gold-leaf her horns. Thus the heroes, and Athena heard them. Their prayers said, the two moved forward, like two lions at midnight, picking their way through corpses, weapons, and crusted black blood. Hector did not allow the Trojans to sleep either. He called together all their great, all of the Trojan leaders and chieftains, and laid before them this stratagem. Who will volunteer for special duty and a hefty reward? I will guarantee a chariot and 2 high-maned horses, the best in the Achaean beachhead camp, to the man who will dare to win himself glory by going close to the ships and spying out whether they are still guarded, as they used to be, or whether our enemies, having suffered defeat at our hands, are planning their escape and are too fatigued to watch through the night. He finished, and they were all hushed in silence. Among the Trojans was a certain Dolon, son of Diomedes, the godly herald, a man rich in gold and bronze, ill-favored but fast. He was the only brother among 5 sisters, and the only Trojan to respond to Hector. Hector, my pride as a man urges me to go close to the ships and scout around, but lift your staff and swear to me an oath that you really will give me the horses and chariot, tricked in bronze, that carry the peerless Achilles, and I will not be a disappointment to you as a scout, but will go straight through their camp until I reach Agamemnon's ship, where their leaders will be deciding in council whether to fight or flee. So Hector took his staff and swore, Zeus be my witness, Hera's thundering lord, that no other Trojan will drive these horses, but you alone will enjoy them forever. He swore an empty oath. Dolon, excited, slung his curved bow around his shoulders, cloaked himself in the gray wolf skin, and put on a weasel cap, taking a javelin he left for the ships, but he never returned to bring any information to Hector. He had passed the crowd of horses and men, and was moving eagerly along, when Odysseus saw him coming, and said to Diomedes, There's someone coming from their camp. I don't know whether to spy on our ships or to strip one of the corpses. Let him get past, and down the plain a little, then we can take him. If he starts to outrun us, hem him in toward the ships and away from his camp. We don't want him to escape toward the city. So the two of them lay down among the dead, just off the path. Dolon ran by unaware and had gone about the length of a furrow, a mule plows. They are better than oxen at pulling the plow in deep fallow land. When the 2 Greeks ran after him, he stopped when he heard the sound, assuming they were friends sent from the Trojan camp to call him back, and that Hector had called a retreat. They were within a spear cast before he realized they were hostile. He started to run. Diomedes and Odysseus picked up their speed, like a pair of hounds on a hare or a doe that goes bleating before it is out into the woods. They had him cut off and were hard in pursuit. When Dolon was coming up to the sentinels, Athena put a burst of strength into Diomedes so that no other Achaean would be able to score the first blow, and Tydeus' son arrived too late. Diomedes closed the gap and called out, Hold it, you're in spear's range, and as good as dead! and he threw as he spoke, but purposely missed. The point of the polished spear sailing over the Trojan's right shoulder and into the ground. Dolan stopped in his tracks, terrified, stammering, his teeth chattering and pale with fear. His two pursuers came up, panting for breath, and seized his hands. Bursting into tears, he said, "Take me alive, I'm good for the ransom. At home we have bronze and gold and well-wrought iron, and my father will give you unlimited ransom if he heard I was alive at the Achaean ships." And Odysseus, as wily as they come, "Get a grip, man, no one's going to kill you. But tell me this, and give me a straight answer. What are you doing out here by the ships alone at night when everyone's asleep? Do you have a mind to strip a corpse or two? Did Hector send you out on espionage, or are you acting on your own volition?" Dolan's knees were shaking as he answered, "Hector lured me into this, filling my mind with foolish hopes. He promised to give me Achilles' horses and his chariot, and he sent me out into the dead of night to sneak up close to the enemy's ships to find out whether they are guarded still or whether the Greeks, having suffered defeat at our hands, are planning their escape and are too fatigued to watch through the night." Odysseus smiled at him wisely and said, "Your heart was set on a truly great reward, Achilles' horses, but they are difficult for mortal men to control. Only Achilles, born of a goddess, can master them. But tell me this, and give it to me straight. Where did you leave Hector when you left? Where in his battle gear? Was he in his battle gear? Where are his horses? How are the Trojans encamped and guarded, and what is their plan? Will they stay put out here by the ships or withdraw to the city now that they have been beaten to the Achaeans' back?" And Dolan, Eumedes' only son, "I'll tell you everything straight. Hector is holding council at the tomb of Ilus, away from the turmoil. As for sentinels, none have been posted to guard the camp. The Trojans keep watch around their fires, urging one and another to stay awake. But the allies, coming from many lands, are all asleep, leaving it to the Trojans to keep watch, since their own children are nowhere near, nor their women." Odysseus, full of cunning, continued, "Then are the allies camped with the Trojans or apart by themselves? I want the details." Dolan, son of Eumedes, responded, "I'll tell you everything straight. Toward the sea are the Carians and the Paeonians archers, along with the Leleges, Caconians, and Pelasgi. Over toward Thambria is the Lycian sector. The Mysians are there too, along with charioteers from Phrygia and Maeonia. But why all these details? If you want to infiltrate the Trojan camp, the Thracians are here at this edge, just arrived with their king, Rhesus, son of Ionius. He has the finest horses I ever saw, the greatest, whiter than snow, and as fast as the wind. His chariot is done in silver and gold, and he came with his massive gold armor. Amazing to see, not what mortal men wear, but what you'd expect on the deathless gods. But look, take me to the ships now, or leave me tied up here so you two can go, and see for yourselves if I'm telling the truth." Diomedes looked at him darkly and said, "Don't even think about getting off, Dolan. Although you've been a fine messenger, you've fallen into our hands. If we let you go, you'll come to the great ships another time, whether to spy on us or to fight in combat. If I take care of you now and make sure you're dead, you'll never worry the Greeks again." Dolan was reaching up to Diomedes in supplication, had almost touched his chin, when Diomedes sprang and with his sword severed the tendons at the nape of the neck. He was still shrieking when his mouth caught the sand. They stripped the ferret skin cap from his head and took the wolf's hide, the recurved bow, and the long spear. Odysseus held these up and prayed to Athena, the despoiler. "Rejoice in these, goddess, first of Olympians to receive our offerings. Guide us once more, now to where the Thracians and their horses sleep." With that, he hoisted the gear into a tamarisk and stashed it there, leaving as a marker a bundle of branches that they couldn't miss on their way back through the black hush of night. Then they went forward through the carnage and weapons until they came to their goal, the Thracian camp. The exhausted soldiers were sound asleep, their gear in 3 neat rows on the ground around them, and by each man stood his chariot team. Croesus slept in the middle, his thoroughbreds tethered by the reins to the chariot's deck. Odysseus pointed him out to Diomedes. "There he is, Diomedes, with his horses, the man that Dolan told us about." "Well, don't just stand there, slouching in your armor. Untie his horses, or you kill the men and leave the horses to me." The gray-eyed one breathed into Diomedes, and he went up and down the row of Thracians, killing them one by one. Their groans were ugly when the sword struck. The ground turned to red mud. A lion comes to an unguarded pen of sheep or goats and leaps in with malice. So Tydeus' son went through the Thracians until he had killed 12. Odysseus, always thinking, pulled each body out of the way by the feet as soon as Diomedes did his work with the sword, so that the combed horses would have an easy path and not be spooked by having to step over dead bodies, which they were as yet unused to. The 13th was Rhesus. As Tydeus' son separated him from the sweetness of life, he gasped for breath. Diomedes stood over him that night in a bad dream sent by Athena. By now Odysseus had the horses free and roped together with the reins. He drove them out of the Trojan camp with his bow, not having noticed the gleaming whip in the chariot. He whistled over to Diomedes, who was pondering his next reckless move. Should he pull the chariot out by its pole, or dump the gear piled in it and carry it, or should he just kill more Thracians? While he was weighing his options, Athena stood near him and said to the hero, "Time to get back, son of Tydeus, to the hollow ships before some other god rouses the Trojans and you are chased back." He knew it was the voice of the goddess, and quickly mounted the horses. Odysseus smacked them with his bow, and they made for the ships. Apollo was out that night too, and when he saw Athena helping Diomedes, he made his silver presence felt in the camp, and awakened Hippoacon, a Thracian lord, one of Rhesus' high-born kinsmen. He started from his sleep, and when he saw the place empty where the horses had stood, and the men gasping in pools of blood, he groaned and called his old friend by name. Then everything was confusion and noise, the Trojans running up from all over the camp to view the havoc wreaked by the warriors, who by now were halfway back to the ships. When they reached the spot where they had killed Hector's spy, Odysseus reined in the horses. Diomedes jumped down and handed up to him the bloody spoils, then mounted again and lashed the horses, who flew on to the ships. Nestor heard the sound first and said, "Friends, Argive commanders and counselors, I may be mistaken, but I still must speak. The sound of horses' hooves strikes my ears. Let us hope that Odysseus and strong Diomedes have rustled some horses away from the Trojans, but I fear in my heart that the best of the Argives have come to harm in the enemy camp." He was hardly finished when they arrived. They got down and were welcomed warmly with handclasps and gentle words. Gerenian Nestor was first with his questions. "Praise be, Odysseus, glory of the Greeks, where did you two come by these horses? In the Trojan camp? Or did you meet some god who gave them to you? They shine like the sun. I'm always among the Trojans. Old I may be for a warrior, but I don't stay with the ships. But I never saw such horses as these. No, I think a god met you and gave them to you. Zeus in the cloud loves you both, as does his gray-eyed daughter who bears the Aegis." And Odysseus, wise in every way, "Nestor, son of Neleus, glory of the Greeks, a god could easily give us, if he wanted, even better horses. Such is heaven's power. No, these horses, old sir, have just come from Thrace. Diomedes killed their master and 12 of his comrades, all their best. And we got one more, a scout near the ships, somebody Hector and the Trojan lords sent out to spy on our beachhead camp." And he drove the horses across the trench, roaring with laughter. The others followed in high spirits, and when they came to Diomedes' well-built shelter, they bound them with thongs at the stall where his horses stood chomping grain. And on the stern of his ship Odysseus placed the bloody spoils of Dolan. until such time as they could prepare a sacrifice for Athena. Then they waded into the sea and let the waves wash the thick sweat from their legs and necks until they felt refreshed. Then they went to the tubs. After their bath, they rubbed on rich oil and sat down to eat, drawing off wine from the brimming bowl to pour to Athena. And that was Book 10 of Iliad. Now, let's see here. So, this is sort of an interesting one-off book in Iliad where it's just a sneak attack. It's just a raid. It's just, let's get two heroes and just sneak in, kill a bunch of dudes, and drive out full throttle from the place in a sweet car. Like, that's what this scene is. And it's so cool to see this in a story that's so old, because you all have seen a movie or read a book or any, like, you've heard that happen before. This is a bunch of commandos going in. This is just a raid on the enemy camp, and it's so classic. Like, this reads kind of like an action. It is an action scene, you know, but it's like, it's just kind of badass. Like, it's crazy. And it's dark and it's nuts, but you've also got like just weird details that are so cool about how all the characters are wearing like different animal skins, and how that's just like when you see, you know, a Batman movie and he puts on that special suit of armor to do that special thing so they can sell more toys, you know. But like, it's like that. It's like, oh, this guy's wearing a big red lion skin, this guy's wearing a wolf skin, this guy's a leopard skin, this guy's wearing like purple, and it's all nighttime, and they're like, what are we gonna do? We're all gonna get killed tomorrow unless we think of something fast. And like, let's just go in there and mess with them, you know. And then they just peel out of there, you know, just like, whoa, let's go, you know, we stole their car. And it's crazy. But of course, as Homer consistently shows us, we're also getting the other side of the story. Dolan. I keep, like so many people in this book who, normally that would just be Soldier A, right? That would just be some guy who's like, you know, goes in, gets some information, gets killed. What happens? We hear about this guy's dad. We hear about, like, he is his only son. He's got a bunch of sisters. Okay, those were girls he grew up with. You know, we're like, since when do you hear about someone's dad? Like, you know, when they're dying. I mean, like, if it's, and we haven't heard of this guy before, as far as I remember. Like, even, although this is my favorite book, I do have trouble keeping some of the characters straight, I'll be honest. But it's like, Dolan's, he's this guy who his father is not very well honored, apparently. That's what they mention. He's ill-favored. And he has a chance to go out and get some glory. And he says to Hector, like, I need you to promise me I'm going to get these horses. And Hector's like, they're yours, buddy. Now, that shows you this is really important to Hector, because you're, like, the horses of Achilles are incredible. You know, that's Shadowfax. That's the Batmobile. That's the Millennium Falcon of this. That's what it is. And horses are a huge status symbol. Not everybody has chariots. Now, it's really cool because at the time that Homer wrote this, which is, as I've said before, like 300 years after when the Battle of Troy was supposed to happen, chariot warfare in Greece was not normal. So at the time that the battle happened, chariots were how people fought, just like how they used bronze. At the time Homer was alive, chariots weren't really used that much. So it's so cool that Homer knows this kind of thing. But the really insane, remarkable thing is, you may have, if you remember, Odysseus is wearing a certain helmet. And there's a lot of detail put into this helmet. And it's got boar's tusks on it. Now, there's a lot of really cool things about this. Like, on the one hand, it's a cool helmet, you know, but every 2 tusks is 1 boar, okay? And a boar is extremely hard to kill. According to T.H. White, who in The Once and Future King, which is about King Arthur, according to him, wild boar is the most dangerous animal to hunt. I don't know if that's totally true, or if that was only true in Europe or what. But boars are no joke. Okay, like, they will kill you. Now, you might know that there's actually a wild hog, wild boar thing going on in America, especially like down in Texas, and that's its own crazy thing. Like, pigs are crazy. I mean, I should do a whole thing about pigs, but and how they relate in the ancient world and how people relied on them. But the point I'm getting to with that helmet with the boar's tusks is not just that, oh, well, you would have had to kill a ton of boars in order to make a helmet full. But those kinds of helmets didn't exist when Homer was around. But archaeologists found a boar's tusk helmet, which is exactly the way that it's described in Iliad, with like the rose and all that. So it's like, that's the same kind of helmet, which is bananas. And I don't know why I don't have a picture of that for you right now. Actually, I'm gonna kind of pull that up as I'm talking about other things real quick, because that's a cool thing to see. But yeah, so hang on, boar's tusk helmet. The thing that is so cool about so many of these things is that there is no way Homer could have known this stuff without an oral tradition, because because written language didn't really come to Greece until like 800 BC. So it's that's just a crazy thing to think about, I think. All right, I've got an image here. Let me bring this up. Sorry, I'm not super. I didn't think about doing this one, but I'm gonna show it to you. I'm gonna show you this interesting helmet. Hang on, bringing it into my live streaming thingamy now. So that's an interesting thing, is that helmet that they put so much detail into. It's like, yeah, well, we actually have one of those now that was found more recently in the grand scheme of history and archaeology. Okay, so give me a sec. I've got crazy folder. I've got a great system here, but it's kind of nuts. All right, here we go. Now, let's see. So this, oh, look at that. All right, so here is the helmet. This is boar's tusks. All right, and you, like, as it describes, like, in rows, going back and forth on it. So every two of those is a pig that can and will kill you. And that's what Odysseus is wearing in this particular excursion. So, yeah, but now also, as I was saying with the tragedy element of it, getting both sides of the story, Dolan, he dies really badly. Like, that's a bad death. Like, there's a lot of bad deaths in this, but you've got a guy who he's weeping and he's like, please take me as a captive. Just, you got me, guys. Sorry. Like, they throw a spear. They're like, stop. We'll kill you. And he stops. He's like, all right, you got me, guys. He's freaking out. He's scared to death, and why is he scared to death? Well, that can be a little insight into his character. I mean, obviously, who's not going to be scared to death in that situation? But, okay, think about the characters in this story. You've got a lot of battle-hardened people, a lot of really tough people used to killing, used to scary situations. And this guy is ill-favored. One of the ways that you get favor in this world, like this war and stuff, is by doing crazy, scary things that not everybody wants to do. This whole council is about getting someone to go into the Trojan camp and do something that nobody wants to do. This isn't fun for them, like and even Diomedes, who's like the craziest guy, is like, I kind of don't want to go alone, though. Can I take somebody? And they're like, all right. And not even everybody there volunteers, okay? But he takes Odysseus, which is, I would have taken Odysseus too. That would have been my choice. If I were Diomedes. Otherwise, I would have taken Diomedes with me probably. But Ajax is crazy, but I don't think I'd take him on a stealth mission. But yeah, there's this horrible way of dying because Odysseus is like, hey, no one's gonna kill you. Just give us information, and he gives them all the information, and they kill him, and he dies like badly, slow. Like it's really kind of horrifying. It's like, geez, I kind of liked Diomedes up until now, and then it's like, but this is war, and it's really interesting to think about, because on the one hand you could say, oh, different cultures have different ways of dealing with prisoners. You could also say that, well, actually, yeah, one way that they deal with prisoners sometimes in this, this part of the world is by, taking prisoners and ransoming them. That's one way you made money. You didn't kill important people's children very often. Like, that's just kind of how it worked. Although we have seen cases where Menelaus almost took a guy for ransom, and Agamemnon said, what are you doing? Kill him. He's, what, you like to him? Have you forgotten what the Trojans did to us? Cap him. But it's brutal. That's crazy. So Dolan goes out on a mission that could change his entire life, his family's life, his dad's life. He probably hasn't done a whole lot of impressive stuff. His dad's rich, but he goes out to try and do something, and he gets caught by the wrong people, and they just kill him. That's rough. That's really rough. Because they didn't have to kill him. They could have tied him up. Diomedes is just like, look, if we ransom you, you're just going to come back and try and kill us, so I'm going to take care of you now. Diomedes isn't interested in money at this point. And even when we come up to Diomedes at night, when they're waking everybody up and stuff, he's laying outside, like, on a oxhide rug with, like, a roll under his head. He's very, well, not literally Spartan, but living kind of tough. Like, Diomedes is really on a great uphill streak here with his clout, because at the beginning of this, Agamemnon's making fun of him, like, oh, you're that kid who, like, I know your dad, I went to war with your dad used to take orders from me or something. And then Diomedes is like, I gotta show this guy here, and then has been just kicking ass for this entire book, while Achilles has not. So anyway, that's pretty much how that's most of what I wanted to go over, I guess, and say. I think it's just so radically awesome that we have a sneak attack, espionage, kind of episode here. That's wild. Anyway, that's not a whole lot of analysis beyond that. But it's just cool. It was fun, but also kind of scary and harsh. Anyhow, let us continue to our section of comments, the chat. Probably my favorite part. Perhaps. I don't know. I just love this entire show. First off, we have Joe. Oh, yeah, Joe, you rock. You're always here. Thank you. All right, so he says hello. So hello, Joe. So we had some sound again. I don't know why I didn't turn it down this time. Barely hear you. Quiet coming through. Blah, blah, blah. Psyched. Thank you, Ben, for being here. It's all kind of quiet. I don't know why. Well, I put the sound up more as it went, but let's see. So, all right, yeah, quiet on my end too, but coming through. The voices are epic. All right, cool. I'm glad you like those. Yeah, and let's see. It just started. Bore are no joke. Just ask Robert Baratheon. Hey, good job, Gorham.com. Nice reference. All right, well, that's the chat. So I'm like, this is my favorite point, and the entire thing sound stuff. I'm sorry. I'll that's weird, because I hadn't adjusted it before. These are the settings I've had, so whatever. We'll get it fixed up. It's live. That's how it goes. And anyway, yeah. Well, thank you for joining me. I think that's it for this episode. I think this was a shorter episode too. Yeah, it's like we're coming up on 50 minutes here. So I hope you have had a wonderful Memorial Day. I hope you had something wonderful to drink. And that's it for me. Good night, everyone. Thank you, and I'll see you this, what day is it? Oh, yeah, it's Monday, obviously. See you